The simple answer to why businesses need to invest in digital innovation and transformation is because it's essential these days to maintaining competitive advantage. Over the last couple of decades, there have been many businesses that have grown very, very quickly and have completely changed their whole industries. You look at Google, you look at Amazon, you look at the way that Apple has been changing things. You look at even things as simple as how the taxi industry has been disrupted by companies like Uber. All of these are due to digital innovation, digital technology starting to change the way that industries work. And that's really, that pace of change sped up when the GFC hit. It sped up worldwide, a little bit less so in Australia. What was happening there was that the Australian economy was reasonably buoyant, and I suppose the business community was looking at what was happening in the rest of the world and realised that, well, our economy is not so bad, so let's take a little bit of a wait and see approach to innovation. Whereas the rest of the world were innovating essentially to survive. They had to. Their traditional markets were being eroded, their competitive advantages were being eroded, and they were seeing new businesses, they were seeing many businesses fall over, and they were seeing new businesses start to compete with them in ways that they'd never seen before. So they had to innovate to survive. And now many Australian businesses are starting to deal with the results of that. Take the retail industry. It's been essentially starting to be competed with businesses that are outside of the geographic boundaries. Non-traditional businesses such as e-commerce businesses are competing heavily with the strongholds of Australian retail. And then if we have a look a little bit to the future, this pace of change is only going to speed up. We're dealing with the massive amounts of customer data that are being developed and being able to be accessed at the moment, available through your mobile phone, through the apps that you deal with, through social networks. All of that data is starting to create a picture about who everybody is. At the moment, we're in a kind of a big data land grab where every business is trying to grab as much of that data as they can and use it in some way. But what's going to happen is that model is probably going to break down, and that customers themselves are going to have much more control over that data and be able to use it to achieve their objectives, which is going to give the customer a huge amount of power, much more than social media did. And that's, businesses still dealing with the way that has changed the way that they communicate with their customers. Then we're dealing with predictive analytics, and this is as customers start to get control of their data, they can add predictive analytics over top of it, which are traditionally tools that only enterprise businesses have, and that will allow them to start to, essentially the things that we have in our pockets now, things like Siri and Google Now, and these kinds of things will start to become far smarter. All of a sudden, we'll be looking at all of your data and be able to help you make very, very smart decisions about how you manage your life. And then we have other technologies that are starting to mature at the same time. Things like 3D printing, things like nanotech, things like biotech. But all of those are going to change the value chain dramatically. If you take 3D printing, for example, if you say, well, you look at a shoe online at the moment, or you go, traditionally you'd go and buy a shoe in a store. Now you can buy a shoe online. Soon you'll be able to look at that, decide what shoe you want, what color you want, how you're going to customize it, and potentially have it printed at a local 3D printer near you, or in a 3D printer in your own home. And that's going to completely change the way that value chains work. So essentially, businesses now need to invest in digital innovation to be able to manage this pace of change. It's not necessarily about trying to be the next 3D printing business or the next I suppose Google or Facebook. It's about trying to say, how are you going to manage this pace of change? How are you going to communicate with your customers in new ways, and how are you going to use the tools that are available to you to develop a competitive advantage in your industry?